Welcome to White Label American Podcast. This is a podcast that brings you bold, in depth interviews with interesting people that are mostly immigrants taking down artificial walls one story at a time. This is a podcast that empowers immigrants to share their stories and listen to those of others. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm your host, Raphael Harry. And before we begin, I would like to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting us. Thank you for the 5 stars. And if you're brand new or you're a long-time listener who hasn't given us 5 stars or hasn't bought our merch, hey, what are you waiting for? Go do that, please. We need your support. So, something I've been forgetting to do all this time is to let you guys who have been listening only on the podcast platforms out there or on our app. Yes, you can listen on the White Label American app. It's available on your Google Play store. There's a video. You can watch this podcast on, you can watch the video broadcast of this podcast, but it's not available on YouTube. On YouTube, it's only the audio you get. You have to join Patreon. So yes, you pay for that one. That's what it is. This, I'm a black capitalist. It's different from capitalists, the regular capitalist there. Yeah, So yes, part of the support you can give this podcast. So, buy merchandise, join our Patreon for as low as $3, and you can watch the videos and bonus content out there. So yes, I remember today, and I will remember going forward to remind you all to watch the video. If you want to watch the video, you have that option. It's available to you. So with that being said, enough about that. You guys know how to support, the things to do. Share with your friends, your loved ones, your enemies, your enemy's best friend, whatever. Share. Just keep sharing, okay? Enough. We don't need, you don't need to hear my voice too much. Let's go meet today's guest. I have the honor of meeting I had the honor of meeting today's guest at the indie, what do you call what's called the indie podcast? No, why I say podcast? The indie comics festival, right?
The Independent Comics Creator Showcase.
Showcase, yes. Um, I was at the event last year, thanks to our previous guest Sean Hill, and I was like, wow, this it was a very small event last year, but. And then this year it grew a little bit, and I was like, this is gonna be one of my favorite events. It's at the Brooklyn Industry City, and when I saw his work, I was just like, man, I'm in love. I'm in love right there, and it's rare to see my little one fall in love with black and white art. That kid, yeah, that's why I can't go on the Maury show anymore because she just does stuff, and I'm like, I can't because that's me. That's just me. She loves his work too. So, with that being said, let's meet the SAG nominated artist, the stuntman from Brooklyn. You know, he has worked in film and TV for the past 20 years, and he's recently added comic artist as his second career, and he's presently working on People Die with Dan Panosian and Joe Ross. There's more to him, but we'll stop there because he's going to give us all the details and more juice, as we say on this podcast. So, welcome to the show, Kenny Wong. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Raf. I'm doing well, and that was too kind of opening introduction for me. But thank you.
There's a lot I left out, but you deserve a lot more than that. But yeah, we're saving all the good stuff. There's a lot more good stuff, but I could go more and more. I could go on and on. But Josh will have to come and say, hey, you gotta keep it down to like 1 minute. So
Yeah.
But I'm always glad and honored to have I like talented people. I like meeting creatives, and I've just been blessed to. It's not like I planned it, but I've just been blessed to always interact with creative people. And even before I started the podcast at Comic Con, I think it was 2017 Comic Con, Sanford Green. I was talking to him at Javits Center, and he said I should think about having my podcast as a comic book. So probably a graphic novel, and it's still at the back of my mind. I mean, yeah. So when next I see him, I know he's going to ask me about that. So I'm like, I should. But it's just I've always been interacting with creative people.
You should get Sanford. He's awesome.
Yeah, he wasn't at Comic Con last year, so I hope
he was. I saw him.
You saw him?
Yeah,
I went down the artist galley twice. I didn't see him.
I saw him. I actually was there. I actually saw him at the airport when I was picking up another artist, and he was there waiting for his Uber, and we were just hanging out, and we took a picture together. Yeah, he was there last year.
But I asked someone else, and someone said I hadn't seen him. Well, I have to do better homework then. All right, I hope he's there this time. Yeah, because I brought stuff for him to sign. But anyway, we'll back on track. But I'll have to, I have to get him. So with that being said, let's jump to your. Let's go back to your very origins, your beginning. We'll start from the very beginning. So, what's the meaning of your names, and is there a story about how you came to have those names?
Which name? Genga?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention your artistic names too. But so start with your main names and then your artistic name if you want to give me that too.
Oh, Kenny is just my birth name
Mhm.
because I'm born in Brooklyn. And I use Genga because I'm a huge fan of Otomo Katsuhiro, the creator of Akira.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an exhibition called Genga. And then I found out, like, in Japanese, it just means original art. And I kind of like that. And I just use it as Genga Jaws, and I call myself that.
Wow.
Yep.
So nobody else had taken that name?
Genga?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
And actually, Kenny Wong, my normal name, that's the most generic name because I found out there's like hundreds of Kenny Wongs.
Yeah.
There's another comic book artist named Kenny Wong, and at the comic stores that I go to, they've told me like, oh, there's another Kenny Wong that shops here. He was just here. And then I've seen some other people that are either stunts or actors named Kenny Wong, and they've been mistakenly credited with some of my work, and I get credited for their work, and I'm like, should I change my name?
That's why I had to ask you about the nomination first because when I looked on IMDb, I was like, dang, wait, how many Kenny Wongs? Like, wow, I didn't realize there's quite a few Kenny Wongs. So
I actually should update that. I don't really normally care to update it, but I should and add like a picture of myself so that it's distinguishable from everybody else.
That will help. That will help because I kind of looked and I was like, okay, there should be no photo. I thought there's usually photos on IMDb's. So
actually, I just found out something really hilarious. I was on the YouTube rabbit hole and I saw something on the feed on YouTube that says Chinese gangster stories from New York City, and then one of the headlines was naming all these gangster names, and then one of them was Kenny Wong, and they were all talking about like their life as gangsters, and I found that pretty hilarious because there's a Kenny Wong gangster. And I'm not that gangster at all.
Not. Oh man. Well, hey, there's a Kenny Wong for every every. Oh man. So your last name, do you know the meaning of your last name?
Yellow.
Oh, wow, that was that was easy, but unexpected.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's two Wongs. One is Yellow and one is King. I got Yellow. Wow. That's my family name.
Okay. Wow. Is there a story behind it?
No. There's no real story. I don't think I've ever been curious to ask
like
about
a house
that.
of yellow or yellow house or
no. Just the character Yellow. There's only one famous Chinese folk hero in China that that has that last name, and I sometimes I wonder, like, am I somewhat related to him
Mm-hmm.
some in our DNA or lineage? You know, his name is Wang Fei Hung. Jet Li plays him. Jackie Chan plays him in movies.
Ah,
He was like a famous martial artist with acupuncture business, but he was a really well-known folk hero.
hmm. Trying to recall if I've seen any of if I've seen it Jet Li or the Jackie Chan movies.
Well, Drunken Master 1 and 2, he plays that character one, Wang Fei Hong, for Jackie
Jackie
Chan.
Chan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
And
I
then
seen
Jet
that.
Li plays him in Once Upon a Time in China 1, 2,
Oh,
3, and I believe 6.
wow. Oh, that got up to six.
Yeah. 4 and 5 was played by Vincent Zhao, another martial arts
Yeah.
actor. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's
Is that?
he's
Is
out
that?
there.
Yeah. Wow. Huh. Well, maybe you know, those that was also there was a period in my life where the martial arts, the kung fu movies from um, um, Hong Kong ruled the world, and like Bollywood was Fridays, but you could just get the kung fu movies on states. Then we only had two TV stations in most cities in Nigeria, and it was state and federal TVs. And some days it was just kung fu, and oh, that you just got the boys trying to mimic all the moves, and yeah, so that's how Jackie Chan came into our lives, and later Jet Li, and yeah, so yeah, that's how I got to see all some of those movies, and later on, then of course pirated copies on the streets. So my memory is now reverting back there, like yeah, yeah, some of those movies, and yeah, I remember seeing some of them on TV.
It's funny because I grew up watching Bruce Lee as a little kid, but it never really registered to me how crazy that is. And then later on, because I'm born here, I watch mostly like whatever's on American TV,
Mm-hmm.
and I started watching stuff on Saturdays or Sundays on Channel 5 for like Kung Fu Theater and stuff like that. So I used to watch that, but again, never really thought much about it. It's just something that I grew up with. And then I start seeing American action heroes. And by the time I was a teenager, because I didn't hang out with many Chinese people growing up until maybe around junior high school to high school, being around Chinese people more often and being more exposed to my culture, then I started watching martial arts movies through them. And because I'm so used to what Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme,
Yeah.
Seagal, all those, and then to someone shows me a Jet Li movie, I'm like, "What is this?" It's like, "Why do they move different?"
Yeah.
And it just, like, hit me different, and then I started going down that rabbit hole because I was a late bloomer, and it's so un-Asian of me to discover so late, and then I was like, "Oh, who are these people? They're so cool." And that also motivated me to like, I want to learn martial arts. I want to do what they're doing, and I started teaching myself how to do martial arts because I didn't have enough money to go to school. My parents were into me wanting to learn that stuff, but I got picked on a lot growing up. So they were entertaining the idea of like maybe he should learn just to defend himself because he's always getting picked on. But I ended up scrounging like a few dollars, and then I went to a store and bought a book by James Liu, and I taught myself how to do the splits and kick.
Wow.
And then when I had a job, I used some of that money because I discovered a wushu teacher in Boston who happened to be Donnie Yen's mom.
Wow.
And so I took my earnings and took a bus out to Boston to learn with Sifu Bosin Mark to do basic, martial arts and learning the form. And she would be impressed that I already started teaching me myself all this stuff. And she corrected my form, she corrected my techniques, and then I started going to all these different teachers and learning and getting better at it. So that stuff just ended up making me into a stunt guy.
Okay,
And
hold on. We'll come back to that because that's jumping ahead
yeah,
a
okay.
little bit. But that was good stuff. There, that was good stuff. So coming back to childhood, because yeah, because we kind of skipped ahead.
Mhm.
Introduce us to your place of birth, and you've answered some of this, but we're sticking to the very early days. So can you introduce your place of birth and what was your childhood like?
Uh, childhood. I was born in Brooklyn, and according to my parents, we were living in Windsor Terrace before we moved down to I think it's Kensington. It's like Church Avenue. I don't really know what that neighborhood's called now. But then after that, we moved to Bensonhurst, where I lived most of my life.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I was saying earlier, early in my childhood, it was maybe one or two Chinese kids, and by the time I reached junior high school, I started to see an influx of more Chinese kids, and I started getting more integrated into that. As far as what my other childhood was like, it's just me growing up drawing all the time. I would pick up computer paper, the one with the stripes, the blue and white stripe computer paper, and I would just
Oh,
draw.
uh-huh.
And I remember drawing a lot of trucks, which I don't like to draw
Hmm.
now, but my parents used to remember saying like, "Oh, you used to love drawing trucks all the time. Everything."
Why do you think? Why was that?
I have no idea. I don't even remember any of that. um,
Yeah.
and then I also remember, like any kid in that era, there was Star Wars on TV. You see all these ads and you see Darth Vader, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" And I started just drawing stuff from looking at all these newspaper clippings or magazines of Darth Vader, stormtroopers. So I was into all that stuff. I was, I guess you could say, I was very introverted because I didn't go out very much. Also, like I'm in a Chinese family; they don't really let you go out.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time drawing and looking at TV, watching cartoons, and my mom actually had stacks of comics that I discovered, and I would just flip through them. She had Richie Rich, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Archie,
Mm.
and surprisingly, she had stuff like Ghost Rider, Legion of
Oh, I wasn't
Superheroes.
expecting that.
Yeah, and
That's a
I yeah, I was
segue.
just like looking at it and it's like, "Oh, what's this?" And then I bought my actual first comic when I was with my dad one day. We went to the store around our house when we were living on Church Avenue, and there's a corner store, and we walked in, so he probably was buying cigarettes, I think. And I saw the newsstand and I saw all the comics on the newsstand, and I picked one up, and it was a Detective Comics Batman with him coming out of an exploding bat plane, and it was drawn by Gene Colan. And I remember looking at it, and I wanted it. He bought it for me, and I just like flipped through it obsessively and got me to want to draw again. And so I was like copying the way he draws hands and
Mm.
the way he drew the gestures of the body. I was very fascinated by it, and that became an obsession for me even more, and I just kept drawing and drawing and drawing, and I think comics became a regular thing for me throughout the years because I kept collecting more comics, discovering more artists, John Buscema, John Byrne, Al Williamson, all these artists, and that's kind of how I spent my childhood: comics and drawing, and I guess I wanted to be a comic artist until I went to college. I went to School of Visual Arts, and I remember taking the basic foundation course in the beginning. I was on probation because I didn't have good academics. I'm a bad agent because I was not an A-list student. High school, I spent, unfortunately, a good chunk of time not being in school.
Hey, The teenage years.
Oh yeah, you know, the rebellious
Yeah.
years. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing was I kind of came to a point at the end of that phase where I realized like, hey, you know, maybe this is a bad idea. I don't think I should be doing this anymore. And none of the kids I was hanging out with felt like it was going to take me somewhere good in my future. And I decided to just walk away from it. I went back to school and went to the dean's office and I said, hey, I know I messed up, but can I just go back to school and just finish it and I'll try to do better. And he was like, well, that's really good that you're doing that, but you've been left back twice. So there's no way you're staying, you know, longer. So we're gonna make you go take your GED. So I took the GED, put a portfolio together of all my drawings, and I submitted to like FIT, Pratt, School of Visual Arts, Parsons. And they got into SVA off my portfolio, but I was on probation since I had bad academic records.
Hmm.
But I think that wasn't a very successful stint because I barely lasted that half a semester and I gave up. It was too expensive. It was a lot of work, and financially, I couldn't support myself. I had a job, but I couldn't do a full time job and full
Full
time
time school.
school.
Yeah.
And I had to make the decision of, do I stay in school and rack up debt, or do I just quit school, stick to the job, and pay off whatever I've taken from student loans and things like that? And
So
I did.
what was the job that you were doing?
I worked for a stock photography company at the time. It was called Liaison, which was later bought out by Getty Images.
Oh.
So I worked for the library archive, taking stock photography and just putting the slides of 35 millimeter slides back into the archive. So I dealt with that.
But
Uh,
you weren't taking actual photos yourself.
no, I did play with photography in high school, right before, you know, like I went to college, because I had a friend that I was hanging out with. She went to another school and I would hang out with her, and then I ended up cutting school to go to her school, and I went to one of her darkroom sessions and I was seeing everyone doing photography and developing film, and that kind of segued into me being interested in photography.
Hmm.
And then when I went to School of Visual Arts, I remember in the first semester I had photography as a basic course too, and I got to play around with the darkroom myself. So that also started this obsession with photography, because actually photography also came from me being interested in one photographer growing up who took pictures of like Depeche Mode and U2, Anton Corbin. He took
Hmm.
these really, really gorgeous, stark black and white pictures, and I'm obsessed with black and white pictures.
So
So,
it started pretty like long time ago, like
oh yeah,
right from the early days.
oh yeah, I was interested in so many things, and I don't know if it's weird or not, but you know, as a teenager reading comics and then being into music and photography, uh usually, you know, a lot of the other kids who are also into comics would be reading Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, but it wasn't just about the characters for me, but I was more obsessed with the artists that drew them, and every artist that drew these characters, if they had a different rendition of it, I was very attracted to this style or that style.
Hmm.
But then I was very into the non-comic booky styles like Bill Sienkiewicz, John J. Muth, Kent Williams, George Pratt, Dave McKean, because they were drawing painterly type images, not the typical like superhero style comics that we see. And I was very, very into that. And I started like trying to draw differently at that time. So there was a lot of things that were influencing me as a teenager drawing. I was into that type of stuff. I was into photography. Then I was also watching a lot of John Woo movies, and I
Yeah.
was drawing a lot of gangster comics.
Wow. Okay. So I'm still gonna take you. Well, probably this question will be. It's gonna be an interesting one for you
Hmm.
because hearing all the stuff you just talked about now, I'm interested to see the answer that you give me.
Okay.
So, with all that you've said, what do you consider your favorite childhood memory to be as at right now?
Favorite childhood memory.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any favorite childhood memories because I was like a young kid, confused, and I was doing a lot of, I was in trouble a lot. So,
Yeah, there's something in you can I think you got something in there that you can yeah,
I mean, the only I
from
would,
what I've heard right now, there's yeah, I see a lot of there's a lot of juice
oh
that
yeah, I
you've
would
you
say,
know.
if I had to generalize a good memory, it would probably be like the drawing part because, as a teenager, you're going through this whole popularity contest in school with other kids, and me not being a very, popular kid, I didn't, hang out with all the cool kids. I was hanging out by
Mhm.
myself, or I had a handful of friends, and I discovered like all the alternative kids, and I hung out with them. So those were probably those moments where I probably would say those are my good memories because I got to explore myself in terms of the art part, because art for me was an escape when I look at it now, because when you go through that kind of experience, you basically escape into what it is you invest your time into. And for me, it was art, comics, music, photography. And had I not invested my focus on that, I don't know what else I would, be into, because those were, to me, were the most interesting times, because I feel like I'm developing myself in these moments, and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, I would have been surprised if it was something else, but because I knew it was going to be something related to that. Because yeah, it's just it's beautiful just hearing you talk about the drawings and uh, your relationship to the black and white, and because I know I was probably like around between the ages of 4 and 6 when I first held a comic book, and I think like most kids, the color was what I gravitated towards, and it will be probably my adult years that I will even realize that I never took note of who wrote the book or who did the drawings, but I just knew that I was the person who gravitated more towards the stories than the drawings. Even though I used to like drawing as a kid, but back then, we never knew that drawings could be a career path because as something that we have in common is that you're supposed to become a doctor, engineer, banker, those type of career paths.
Yeah.
But the ones that you start getting it from young, because I've told the story on the podcast before of when after I found because my elder brother, he's like way older than I am, so he used to record Olympics on VHS and cassettes, and I found a bunch of them, and I started watching like a bunch of Olympic tapes, and I was like, oh, I love sprints, and I started dreaming of I might become a sprinter, and
Yeah.
my older sibling asked me like, so what would you like to be when you grow up? I was like 9, and I said, oh, I would like to be 100 meters. I think I'll run 100 meters or maybe 200 meters. Or maybe I might try 400 meters, but I think 100 meters. I think I'll set a world record, be the fastest man in the world, blah, blah. I was just running my mouth. I was a 9-year old, and I go out to play, and I get back home, and the whole family is like sitting and waiting for me. And they're like, so what did you say you want to be again when you grow up? I was like, oh yeah, yeah. So as I was saying, I like to be. I'm gonna be the 100 meters champion. I'll just try to run my mouth, and that's how it began. Each person starts talking. Do you know that it's only dropouts that take part in athletics, and blah 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 blah. They just start. Why can't you be an engineer? You're so dumb, and da, da, da. And I'm like, huh? What? They're not. You mean they're not intelligent people? And yeah, that's how.
Yeah.
That was destroyed for me. And it's not like I'm claiming to be the fastest person, but they kind of it was like so downgrading for me. So you can imagine. Yeah, I don't remember. I still have the memory of. I think I was about 12 in class, and the arts teacher told us that was one of the last arts teachers that I ever had in school, and they told us everybody go outside, grab a plant, bring that whichever plant you grab or a flower, bring it in, and draw whatever you grabbed outside. And I came out first in class, and I got a lot of haters that day. I still remember getting haters for that. I couldn't understand why, but but I got the I think it was a yellow flower, but I remember I still remember I don't remember the color, but I drew mine, and I ended up being first. It felt good to come out first, and I was like, wow, I could do this, and but it still ended up becoming people don't you can't get a career from that. Like, how are you
Mm.
gonna be telling a kid that? Why is that the first place your mind went to? So with time, I started absorbing that kind of message. And like, yeah, well, why would I? What can you gain from drawing? So
Yeah.
I started becoming that person who wanted to become a banker. Even the soccer that I used to love, because I wasn't like yeah, I wasn't one of the cool kids too, but I knew a lot about current affairs, soccer. Those are my strengths.
Mhm.
So people will come to me to come ask about that. So that's where I could own you, because I knew all those information. And even on knowing information and stuff like that, I was like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with that. So you start thinking, "Well, I want to become a banker, but I don't want to work in a bank." And so that's how I always love when people found their passion, people found something that worked for them outside of. And I'm not saying it's bad if you work in those places or those careers, but I have young people who listen to this podcast and they are finding their creative strengths now, and I'm telling them like, yeah, and some of them reach out to me, and I understand what's going on in their families, and I always let them know like part of why I do this is to let you guys know that you have options. You don't have to go through the same um, mistakes that I went through, and some of them are my family members, and I get it, but I also am able to admit the mistakes that I made, and I'm happy to have guests like yourself who are who show you that yeah, look, there's something out there. We're not telling you that you're gonna make $1 million just because
Yeah.
you're doing this right now, but there's something that you can do that you have peace at your heart. You'll be happy
Yeah.
in doing it, and yeah, and it's your creative. There's so many creative options out there. So I'm always happy to, you know, see someone who they were following the path from young. There was challenges and all that, and there'll always be challenges, and I just love giving that choice, that option out there, throwing it out there to people.
Well, I
Yeah.
did go through those challenges too because it's like I'm born in an Asian family, and it's funny because a young artist at one of these drawing events came up to me about it. She's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, my parents want me to do this, but I really want to draw." You know, it's like how do I make this work for me? you know,
Yeah.
and for me, I was like, I know I know what she went through because growing up, I mean, my mom was cool with it, and technically she was kind of an artist because she had drawings too. So I kind of
Oh.
got it from her.
Yeah.
But I know relatives were like not into it. They're like, you
Nah.
should be studying, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor. And I even at some point, they got fed up because I was doing so bad in school. They took my comics and threw them all out.
Yeah.
But
I know those stories.
but that only upset and angered me to rebel even more and defy what they wanted from me. But the funny thing is, I feel like it comes full circle because now as I'm older and I'm actually drawing as what I kind of originally wanted, I realized doing my other job, if I didn't have this other job, I would not have that creative freedom to just do what I want and be
Mm.
happy with it. And also at the other end of it, there's also like a side, I guess you could say, business end of it that all those basic tools that you were being taught came in handy because it's like you sign contracts, you got to
Yes.
negotiate, you got to
Hmm.
talk to people, you got to learn to you know like you saw me at the comic convention, I got to be social. I got to talk to people. I got to sell myself.
Yeah,
And all these little things actually do help you to become a successful artist,
true.
to get yourself out there. So I was telling this kid, whatever your parents are telling you to do, you know what, just go with it. You never know that later on you might be able to use that education to further what you want to actually do, which is the art, because it actually helps.
It helps.
It's also, and depending on which percentage you are, not every artist is going to make money right out the
no,
gate.
no.
You're going to be struggling for a long time. But if you have a normal job and then you come to a certain point where you're comfortable, you are financially stable, you decide this is where you finally can focus your energy on, you will actually find more freedom in doing what you like
Hmm.
rather than let it lock you down and do things you don't like.
Yeah, yeah. I get when people bring those type of questions or ask for help. I always say I agree that I don't say throw away the baby with the bathwater. I always the only pushback I give is that instead of just beating it into the kids like this is the only way, like it's not the only way. Like the language we use, we can tell the kids like, look, I know you want to pursue this path, and I will encourage you to pursue the path. However, you need a stable ground
Yeah.
because, like you said, like you rebelled. Sometimes, like I know someone who his comics were destroyed completely, and he had a great collection of comics, and he never recovered from that. Well, yeah, he's successful in the field he is in today, but something died in him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making money, but something died in him.
Yeah.
And the family can't place it, but those who know him, if you are a true friend, you know that something died in him
Yeah.
after they did that to him because they were trying to send him a message like, you must go to school and become an engineer. And okay, so he went to school and became that engineer because he couldn't rebel. He wasn't that type of person, but something just died in him and he never recovered. He just, okay, I followed. And sometimes people, it's like some parents miss that, and I worry about those people because it's like, okay, I'm making the money, and he's just a walking shell,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what happens to those people?
Yeah.
So how about we use a different language, and over with times we change, and it's okay to change with times and say, yes, I hear you. You want to do this thing. But we worry about we as parents have to worry. We want
Yeah.
you to succeed. So how about you have some safety net because
Yeah.
we can't be covering all your bills and your
Yeah.
expenses in the future. So yeah, so that's the only thing I ask for the parents and the guardians to do and support the younger ones. Otherwise, you're gonna have rebellions or you have some being empty shells, and it's very sad. It hurts when I see that type of you know creativity. And then the one that I hate the most is like that also happened to me after the stuff that happened to me when I was like age 9, and then fast forward to when I'm 18 and I'm doing dishes. One day I have this radio next. I always had the radio next to me. That's how I was always getting information. And sports radio is on, and they're talking about how much soccer players are being paid. And then it was about 90,000 pounds. Yeah, 90,000 British pounds for the highest paid player in the world. And one of the family members was just happened to be in the kitchen, and she was like, "They pay somebody that? I thought you used to play. I thought you wanted to be a soccer player." I said, that was like 9 years ago. So you can't kick a ball now. I haven't played for like 6 7 years. That skill, I'm not going to be competing with people who've been playing for longer. And go kick a ball. They're paying somebody good money like that. I'm like, you don't remember that day you were what you said to me, how you made me not touch. I was not going to be playing sports. You all told me to go focus on the book. And I never said that. Yeah. Like, so, but So because you all made me stop going out. If you caught me with a ball, I got beat. So now it's like, oh, but somebody is making millions. Why can't you make millions? And then it now turns to that degrading
Yeah.
comment on the person again, which is now killing the person's self confidence. I thought I was trying to do good here, and then now, oh, you're not even can't even make millions. So yeah, so that's why I always have a pushback. Like, just let the people find their part and support them, and don't kill people's creativity.
I think if anything,
Ah.
it just enforced this whole thing in my mind, whereas like I drew, but I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and it kind of led into my approach of whenever I draw, I was like, I'm gonna draw, but I'm gonna draw because I want to, and I want to be really good at it,
Mm,
and I want to be good for myself. I don't care about what other people think. I just want to be as good as I can be. I'm not trying to be famous or anything, or be a millionaire. Realistically, I just want to be really good at what I do, you know? And I realize like by being good at what you do, that other stuff kind of comes naturally on its own,
yeah.
you know? But it just depends how hard you work at it. But I definitely feel like I've done my time of having a normal job too. So I know what it's like. I've worked in an office, I worked in a restaurant, I worked in, as a stock boy in all these different jobs. So I've done all that experience, and I realized in my head like, this is it's good because I'm making some money to make myself float and to be able to eat, to buy some clothes. But I realized like that's not what I want.
Mm,
You know, I want to do this.
mm.
It helped push me harder to really work harder.
Hi, everyone. If you're new to the podcast or a returning listener and you enjoy what we are doing here, did you know that you could enjoy more of our content and also support our work via Patreon? For as little as $3 per month, you get access to loads of bonus content that you'll find nowhere and be the first to the latest news. Don't miss out. Go to patreon.com/white label American pod or just search for White Label American Podcast on Patreon. Patreon. So, which did you do first? Like, was it a stuntman? Wait, how does one even become a stunt person? Like, how does one become a professional stunt person?
Okay, so I ended up being a stunt person only by accident. It wasn't something that I thought was an actual job because I was into the movies and I was doing martial arts, and I thought at some point like, yeah, maybe, when I'm okay enough, maybe I can teach martial arts and be a teacher in someone's school or something, right? And I remember also I was also doing gymnastics in '86 in Amsterdam at this church. It was like this big loft. That's actually one of my favorite memories too, because I have a lot of long standing friends that I've been training and hanging out with in those days in my 20s. And I remember training at the gym doing gymnastics, and one of the other people there was like, "Hey, it's like you ever thought about doing stunts?" And I said, "What's that?" And they're like, you watch Jackie Chan and Jet Li, and they fight in these movies, and then you see the guys fall all over the place. I was like, oh, okay, that's what it's called. And so, yeah, if you're interested in being a stunt, there's a guy that is looking for a Chinese stunt guy, and I think you fit that. I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, and she told me he's worked with Sammo Hung and Jet Li on a movie. I was like, really? you
Wow.
know, and she gave me the number. I reached out to him and I bothered him because just the thought like he worked with Samo, he worked with Jet Li, maybe he could show me something. I wasn't thinking about the job. I was like thinking like, what can I ask him to make me better? And I pestered him, and finally he's like, okay, we're meeting at this place in downtown Brooklyn and just show up. We're gonna audition. I was like, okay. And I went in, and there's a couple of other guys there that I knew too from the training. They were all there, and his name is Roberto Lopez. who I'm still friends with, and he's one of my first mentors. And he just basically had us do this routine of like warming up. All right, guys, just do some basic martial art movements and some basic acrobatic movements down the floor. So I was doing those. And finally, he's like, all right, he set this whole thing up with mats. And he stacked these mats, these fold mats up like it's a table. And
Mhm.
he's like asking everybody, he's like, all right, so I want you to jump on the mats like it's a table. And I want you to do a back three quarter, almost like a backflip, but you're stopping your momentum in midair and you're landing on your chest.
Oh, okay. I can picture that.
So I did that, and then he had me do it a number of times, like boom, 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 do it a bunch of times repeatedly. He's like, okay, good. And then he's like, can you add a half a turn and fall on your back? So I did the back three quarter, half turn to my back. Oh, good. Do it again, over and over and over. Then he goes, can you do back three quarter, half turn to your back, but land like this is the table,
Mhm.
land with only this part of your shoulder on the edge of this and let it roll you this way. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I never tried it, but let's see. I did it. And he goes, okay, good. Do it again. Do it like a bunch of times. And I kept doing it again and again. And then he goes, okay. And then he hired me for my first job. And that's how I got into the stunts.
Wow. Wow. That is wow. Wait, and the Oscars doesn't recognize stunt work, right?
Not that I know
Right. That's
of.
it should right there. Just that alone. I'm like, yeah, it should because I'm feeling the pain already. Just
Oh.
from, just from that description. I don't know. My shoulder is hurting.
mean, I don't really think about it. I mean, I for me, it's like I think similar to the Chinese guys, where I got a chance to work with them, and I kind of developed the Asian mentality of like, oh, I'm a stunt guy. I'm supposed to. This is my job, so I stay quiet and I'm silent in the shadows, and you know, oh, whenever you get a job, like just make sure you don't see your face.
Wow. So, who's the most popular star that you've worked with that like you can tell us, like not a future project that you can't say, but like, what's the biggest mm, celebrity that you've worked with in the movie?
Uh, I don't know what everybody defines the
Oh
biggest
well,
is different.
to you, who's your biggest? Who's your favorite? Okay, let me say your favorite. You can name more than one.
It's weird because my definition of like one of my favorite moments
Yeah,
in
favorite
being a
moments. Yeah,
stunt,
yeah, yeah.
I got to meet the Taiwanese and the Hong Kong stunt team when I
Oh,
did a job in Ohio for the RZA from Wu Tang Clan. He was
mm.
shooting
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was shooting something that would have pretty much been what the man with the iron fist ended up being, but we shot the early, version of it before he made that movie. And I went out to Ohio with the stunt team, and they were telling me that, oh yeah, the Hong Kong and the Taiwanese stunt team are here. So the choreographers from Five Deadly Venoms, and then there's Tony Leung from the Hong Kong Stuntman Association. So I got to be on the set and watch the Hong Kong guys and the Taiwanese guys, but it was with the Taiwanese guys that I was more closer to because we were together most of the time, and I got a really good close experience with the coordinator because I saw him think of shots, think of choreography, how he directed, how he edits in his head.
Oh,
And it's kind of like how it's helped me vision envision things now in my head where if I read something, it's like, oh yeah, this is I can see in my head like, oh yeah, I'm gonna draw like this, or I can photograph something like this and edit like this because everything's all here before I even started. That was one of the most memorable moments for me in terms of being a stunt in my career. And another was like, I guess you could say working on Dark Knight Rises. I wasn't really doing a whole lot, but I got to just be on that set. And I got to see the director with the IMAX cameras because I'm
Yeah,
so into
Christopher Nolan.
photography
He's
and
big on that. Yeah,
cinematography,
he's big on that.
and I got to see the IMAX cameras and the film, the big boxes of film. And I'm watching how he directs, and it's kind of almost similar to the way the Chinese, where he pretty much knows what he wants, and then they set the camera there, and then they go. So that was really good to see,
Oh,
because I'm kind of very old fashioned. I like film.
that's
um,
fascinating.
that was a highlight. I would say, yeah, those were the ones that are the most memorable for me.
I wasn't expecting Nolan's style to be similar to the Taiwanese way.
Because
But
a lot of times,
it just reminded me of Star Wars getting a lot of it's like copying a lot of what's the director's name of what's that Japanese movie that
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa, yeah. That's what just came to my mind, like, oh, you know what, I shouldn't be surprised, but it's like,
I work with a Japanese crew too on a Japanese movie and a TV show, and they're similar to how the Chinese, where they're very precise, they're very quick, they
hmm,
know what they want.
okay.
They have such speed in getting all the things they want and moving on. Whereas my experience working on more Americanized movies is they usually do the master and then they go in with specials or other specialized shots where they just pick up things that they missed on the master, which for me is a different approach, but it's also like very how do I say this?
Is it too technology heavy?
It's like you kind of figure it as you go along rather than knowing what you
Oh,
want.
okay.
Because then when you get all this coverage, then you go to the editing bay. If the editor is looking at all this footage, if he's not familiar with it and he has to do it with the editor, he's going to not know exactly how to pick the best shots, I guess. And I'm not trying to say they don't know their job, but
Mhm,
just when you have so much stuff, how do you tell what's best?
mhm.
Whereas the Chinese and the Japanese, they were just like, "We're gonna shoot this here, da 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 da, cut. I'm gonna put the camera here. We'll do this, cut. Then we reverse back again, cut." And they just keep moving.
Wow.
They're fast.
Wow. That's great to know. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Those are things that someone like me, who's just the guy who enjoys. I mean, I enjoy movies from that part of the world. Like, I mean, South Korea is my thing right now.
Mhm.
So, have you worked on any Korean production?
I have not, but I actually shot. Did I? I think I came either. I'm trying to remember. I did go to some sort of like production scout for one small project where the cinematographer was the guy who did Oh Boy.
Oh man, that's one of my all time
Yeah,
favorite. One of my all time. Oh yeah, yeah.
that's the closest I've ever worked with a Korean.
So, but so was it a similar style of approach?
I actually don't remember
Uh,
because I don't think I worked on it. Was only there for the talk of the preparation of it,
okay.
but I don't remember if I worked on it. It's been that long.
Ah, all right. Now, I was just curious to know if it was the approach, because yeah, Korean movies, yeah, that's yeah, they're right now. I mean, that's Korean. I think Old Boy was what started it. That was like the very first
Mhm.
Korean movie I ever saw. Somebody gave it to me while I was, I think I was stationed in. Was it? No, I just got back from Bahrain, but somebody had given it to me as a gift while I was living in Bahrain, and I watched it one night. I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia, and I was like, "What is this? They got stuff like this in Korea? What?" My life was never the same after that. Yeah, but yeah, respect to great filmmakers around the world. Yeah, yeah, shout out to them. But yeah, it's yeah. So um, the likes of Tom Cruise, and I don't know if Jackie Chan still does his stunts too. I don't know. He's up there in age now. Are they? You know, Tom Cruise loves doing his stunts. How do stunt professionals look at actors like that? Do they feel like these guys are taking their jobs away, or they make life too easy for the stunt guys?
I mean, there's only I've never worked with Tom Cruise before, so I wouldn't know what they would think, but I don't think anyone would feel like their jobs are taken away. I mean, there's still going to be a stunt coordinator, you need stunt people. He will have a stunt double regardless as a backup,
Okay.
you know. And I'm sure, if he's insisting on doing it, and there's actors that insist on like, oh yeah, I can do that, and you gotta give them the room to let them do it. And they can only do it to a certain point when, unless you're Tom Cruise, the insurance company or some production would be like, no, don't let them do that. It's too dangerous. And then you have to give the double the position to do the more dangerous thing.
Mm.
But in Tom Cruise case, I guess, if he's the producer or something, I'm sure he'd be like, no, I'm gonna do it. But I don't think anyone's really losing a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. I just had to ask that. It's a basic question, but yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of his, but I'm like, dude, how old are you, man? What you still running? He's running is just the thing
Yeah.
that's like my go-to.
I mean, Jackie Chan too,
Yeah, Jack, he still does his stunts.
as far as I know, yeah, I think so. But he's still older now, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm sure he's still
I
trying.
still look
But
at him like as if he's what was that? Was it God's project? No, no, Project A.
yeah,
Yeah, I still look at him. I'm like, then I have to remind myself, like, man, he's not that young anymore, man. Come on, step out of it.
yeah.
It's,
There's only so much you can do before you start like, "Ugh, I'm hurt."
yeah, because yeah, those movies back then, it was like, man, this guy was like, because I think he was one of the people who made us as kids snap out of it because we try to mimic everything he was doing, and then seeing the guy fall from was it Project A where he was falling?
From
He
the clock tower.
with the clock tower. There was one of his movies where he fell off a cliff and into the trees,
Oh,
and
that's Armor of God.
I'm of God. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I'm of God. And so who gonna do it first? Like, yeah, yeah, nah. We're gonna listen to our parents on this one.
So
We stopped.
when I worked in Ohio, with the Taiwanese stunt team, toward the very end of the job, I remember working the Taiwanese stunt team and the coordinator Robert Tai. He was choreographing and directing this scene with Rizzo where he's on a wet barn. It was raining heavy that night, and then he had all the Taiwanese stunt team dressed up as ninjas while Riz is sitting on the big stack of hay and he's doing these fight scenes. And then the Taiwanese stunt guys were fighting him in the ninja uniforms. And at some point, he has to pop up and he flips and he's supposed to land on the floor. And I remember very clearly when he flips and he lands, and because the floor was slippery and muddy, he slips, puts his hand out. And then next thing you know, the elbow pop, and you see the bone sticking out here.
Dang.
And we were like, oh. And then the coordinator, Robert Tai, said, oh, get away. Don't leave me alone. I'll take care of this. And he picked up his own stunt guy and he was like taking him by the arm and just inspecting it. And the guy was like, ah. And he just like, Kaka. Okay, go back to work. I looked at that. I was like, wow.
Right.
And it reminds me of like all the times I've ever gotten injured. And I went to Chinatown to the bone setters and they did the same thing where they're like, cluck, cluck, cluck.
Oh, man.
But when I saw him a week later, they came to Brooklyn to hang out. And I saw him. He was fine. And it was just his elbows all purple and black and bruised up. So, but he was fine.
Man. Yeah, I need you to give me one of those bone setters.
I don't think they exist anymore because
no. Gentrification. God
that was
damn.
the old times, man.
Oh,
because
man.
they're not around anymore.
Man.
Or if someone knows about it, I would like to know.
Yeah,
where they
please,
are.
if anyone listening, if you know any one of them, please send them my way. Hit me up. Yeah, we used to have people like that in my tribe back home. Because we're known for massages and some elderly people. They just got the way of like I don't know. I've known of soccer players who got hurt badly, and it's like, we gotta take you for surgery. Like, no, 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 take me to this village. They got somebody there. And like, what? They're good with bones. And that's how you find out some old elderly person. And it's like, who took over from that person? Nobody got trained. Oh no, no, no.
Actually, I have another good one for you, but this one happened to me. So when I was doing the gymnastics, when we had those like soft, cushy mat floors,
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to do like a front sweep kick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had no socks on. I'm probably what, in my early 20s. I decided to be an idiot and just try it on this floor, not realizing like, oh, that's a bad idea. So I did the front sweep kick, but you have to crouch really low when you do it, right? So as I do it, I put so much effort into like that sweep that when I spun around, I heard "Ka, ka, ka, ka,"
Yikes.
and then I was like, oh, something happened. I'm looking down and I see my foot. And let's say this is my foot, right? My big toe is missing.
Yikes.
And then I was like, oh, where's my big toe? And I like looked around. I'm looking at my teachers. They're all busy. They're all teaching the other students. And I was like, I don't want to say nothing. I don't want to get in trouble. Sat down to the corner. I picked up my foot and my big toe was underneath,
Yeah.
right here. It was turned all the way around
Woo.
and it bent all the way back underneath at the bottom of my foot. And I'm looking around. I was like, don't know if it's a good idea. I took the big toe. I was like, clack! And then I was like, oh, not bad. It's moving. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go train. I went back to training within few minutes. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't train. It's starting to hurt. I don't know if I did something bad with it. I kept training, but then I kind of took it easy, went home, and the following day I wake up and I felt throbbing pain. I look and my toe got swollen like this, and I couldn't even put my shoes on. And I remember going to work with no shoe because I couldn't fit it in. And my boss at the time at Getty Images was like, why did you come to work? It's like, what's wrong with your foot? And I was like, oh, I said, go see a doctor now. And I'm like, okay, sorry.
Oh man, that sounds like an early 20s. Yeah, that's the.
And the funny thing is, the doctor was like, when I saw the doctor, he was like inspecting it. And then he looks at me, he's like, you are so lucky you didn't break anything. Everything's fine. You're just swollen and, hyperextended.
Oh man. Oh
Yeah.
man. Oh man. That's oh bro. Ah yeah.
You didn't expect that kind of interview, right?
No, no, that's good. That's good. In my next life, I'll try that. I'm too old for that now. uh, I'm like, what's his name? Was it Danny Glover in Little
I'm too
Weapon?
old for this shit.
I'm too old for this shit.
I feel him right now. I actually got invited to his birthday party on a job that I was on that he was in. And then what's funny is it was a Jim Jarmusch movie that he starred in, and I played a zombie. And I remember going to set one day, and there's this woman with her son, trying to figure out what to do. And I was helping her. And then at some point, I guess she wasn't part of the production. I didn't know then because I was just like, "Oh, do you need help? What's wrong?" He's like, "Oh, we just trying to get a ride back to our hotel. Where's your hotel?" And she's like, "Oh, it's here." And then I saw the address. I was like, "Oh, that's not far from me. If you want, I'll drive you there." I drove her back to her hotel. She was really appreciative. And then the next day I saw her, she was like super friendly and she goes, "Hey, by the way, I'm having a dinner party for my nephew or cousin, was it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, I'll come." He's like, "He's on this movie." I was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "Who is it?" "Danny Glover." I was like, "Oh." So I got invited to this party for
Wow.
Danny Glover, and he made a big speech, and he ended up with the speech at closing with, I'm too old for this shit.
Wow. Yeah, the fourth movie with the whooping that Jet Li gave them, that's still one of my all-time favorite.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that movie, I was like, yep, the way that fight ended, that was one of the most believable fights of all time because I was like, there's no way you guys could beat this guy. That was my one of my favorite bad guy right there because I was like, this guy's too good.
Yeah.
It's too good. There's no way these two Americans can win this fight. So it's just pure luck. I accept that. I believe that. Yes, yes. That's why it's one of my. It's amongst my all-time favorites. Yes, I know Mel Gibson problematic, all that, but it's one of my it's my guilty pleasure.
Well, I remember when it first came out, how excited everybody was.
I was in Nigeria, so I only got the VHS later on. That was one of my first original VHSs that I got. Unlike the rest that were pirated, my brother-in-law bought. He bought it. He was coming from South Africa, so he bought it, and I was like, "Wow, they made a fourth movie! I didn't know."
Yeah.
So I put it on, and I was like, "Jet Li in an American movie with oh man, wait, Jet Li's the bad guy? Wait, they made a mistake. It's supposed to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Wait, okay. So now, how they gonna fight this guy? This guy's good. And when the first whooping, I was like, oh, they made
Yeah,
a
the
mistake,
one inside
man.
the house.
I was like, oh, they made a mistake, man. Who made this idea to put this guy? I was like, oh man. And at the end, I was like, wait, this two gonna fight him in the end? When they do like they're gonna take out him? I was like, how? In my head, I'm like, how is this gonna go? I know American movies. You're supposed to win, but nah, I'm dead. I'm like, no. Nah, this not gonna happen. And I saw the whooping and the whooping. I was like, yeah, I'm actually rooting for Jet Li on this one.
Yeah, I was rooting for Jet Li. I was like, please kick their ass.
I was like, yep, he's whooping them good. And at the end, when I was like, okay, yes, I agree. Yeah, I agree. This is the only way you can win this fight. That's it. Because, yep, that was the most believable whooping. Yeah, that's why any other franchise, any other movie, and it's like, how did you win this fight?
Yeah.
Who thought about this? Who wrote this movie? Nah, wrong. You failed. You lost me there because that's Little Weapon 4. People like, but Mel Gibson wasn't. I was like, you don't get it. Back then, this how you do it. If you're gonna bring a movie and you want to show me a movie and you bring a body in the movie and the body is good like this, then he gotta whoop you good.
Yeah.
Beat you real. And he's like, you know what? I'm dying. Well, whatever is there, I'll use it. I'll cheat.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, every time you see like if they cast like a star like Jet Li as a bad guy, you always wonder like, how are you gonna make this believable that you can kick his ass? Because I'm sorry, I can't.
You can't. Like it was the first time. What was the movie he did? Was it? No. The one he did with Aaliyah.
Romeo Must Die.
Yeah. I remember when my neighbor brought it to my street and was like, he had a video CD. He got a video CD because we couldn't afford DVDs. Video CD, like, wait, I was like, who? Wait, who's the bad guy? Because at first, he had one with DMX.
Yeah.
So the guy
that was after that was a Cradle to the Grave.
Cradle to the Grave. So the guy thought it was Cradle to the Grave. He got the wrong information. It was like DMX versus Jet Li. I said, that's stupid, man. DMX go fight Jet Li. Like, no. So he put it on. All the boys came and watched it. Like, no. You got the wrong movie, man. But yeah, we're glad that Jet Li is good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was like, oh, but I thought DMX and Jet Li will fight. Like, why is that the fight you want to see? You gonna put some pit bulls on Jet Li? No.
Yeah.
So yeah, but those are some good times, man. But man, I appreciate. Yeah, I always appreciate Little Weapon 4. That movie was, I was young then, but I started seeing that. I think that started my. If you bring a bad guy who can whoop the good guys up and beat them real good. I will start rooting for the bad guy. Like, he might be bad, but
There was also Highlander 4 where they had Donnie Yen play one of the Highlanders, and he fights the Highlander.
I never saw that.
No.
Well,
we remember that movie, but I remember seeing that scene, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm rooting for Donnie for this one."
What was his name? Was it the same Highlander The same guy who played the first
No,
Highlander.
it was another one. I forgot his name. God,
Oh, that's
I just know Highlander 4 Endgame.
oh yeah, and up against Donnie Yen. Oops.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when you watch that scene, you're like, yeah, I don't know how you're gonna
And
fight
that
this
that
guy.
reminds me of well, what was the Bruce Lee 30 on 30 watching? That's why Bruce Lee was trying to get into American movies and TVs, and I was like, these are the people that they were putting on Bruce Lee against. Dang, so man, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me not get lost in that rabbit hole.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
we'll get
yes,
really
we'll
lost.
get really
We'll never
lost.
stop.
And Walter won't stop me because he's enjoying it. So, so one topic that I haven't touched on is music, and I'm pretty sure that you use music a lot. Music. I'm curious to know how you use how music plays a role when it comes to your drawings and even your stunt work. How does music work with the work that you do?
uh, it plays a big part in everything I do, honestly, because oh, it all started when I was again a teenager. I love music. I when I had my first little cassette player, I used to always listen to it on my Walkman. You
Yeah,
know.
for the young ones who don't know that that's a real thing.
Yeah.
You might go to the museums now and check it out, but yeah.
But music has always been another platform of escape for me aside from drawing because then you just put your headphones on and you're just in your own world. But now music, it sets the tone for me, puts me in the headspace. I'll listen to music when I draw. Music just puts me in that emotional headspace of what I'm doing. So I'll make like a little playlist. Like the one consistent playlist I have is like the Wong Kar Wai playlist that I put together,
Oh, okay.
and it's just music from his movies or inspired by his movies or music that I feel like would fit into something he would do that I just tossed in there, and I'll play that as I'm drawing because I'm trying to. I don't just draw. If I just draw, then I don't feel like I have any motivation or purpose. But when I'm listening to the music, it puts me I don't know if if it's the right way to say it, like, you feel a certain way when you hear these sounds, and then it just makes you think of things, and then it helps me not only think of things, it puts me in that mood, and then all of a sudden, it just comes out of me, you
Hmm.
know?
So
And then
is it like it takes you to a dimension with whatever you it's like you and the work that you're working on, you're in a separate dimension away from our dimension.
kind of, it's more like an emotional dimension, I guess you could
Yeah,
say,
emotional dimension. That's
like emotional context,
mm-hmm.
as Bruce Lee would say.
Yeah.
And if I don't have that, it's just harder for me to draw, just kind of like, then it just becomes something you're just doing, but there's no feeling behind it for me. Because if I don't have that feeling when I'm drawing, then I'm not doing it. I don't feel like doing it. Uh, and then how music plays a role in stunts for me. I don't know if it's just stunts, but just in general, physically. And this is something I read from Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan and even Bruce Lee, where in an interview they were saying how one of the s- martial arts actors that they were hiring was watching how they were choreographing, and sometimes they're not doing anything and they're just kind of like thinking of choreography, and they asked him, so what do you how do you come up with this choreography, and what is this thing you're doing when you're tapping your foot on the ground? Like, I'm thinking about music.
Hmm.
It's like when you have a rhythm, when you have music and melody coming in, then you think about the fight choreography and you think about like, "Dun, dun, 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 dun," and
Okay.
then you kind of think of base your movements around that, which is why when you hear the Chinese guys choreograph, they never go, "Oh, I'm gonna punch here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this." They always, this is how they talk. They're like, "You come here. You do this at ba ba da ba 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 ba," You hear Jackie Chan say in interviews too.
Oh,
When you hear that, like ba 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 ba, ba, that's that rhythm, that
yeah.
musicality that they're talking about in the choreography. So it ebbs and flows, and
Mhm.
there's it's just not like da 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 da, you know.
Ah.
And that helped with how I do movement too. So when you're doing movement, you're like, you know,
Mhm.
you think about that, and it also helps me when I draw because I'm thinking of flow. I'll listen to like what very relaxing Chinese or Japanese music where it helps me flow when I draw, and I'm trying to extend that into like movement when I'm doing a martial art. If I'm doing a punch, if I punch the bag, like you know, the same thing with choreography. You think about that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's how music plays an important part in the stuff that I do.
So, can you give us at least three artists from your playlist that keep you in rhythm?
Uh, be artists. Well, right now I'm just like I said, I'm listening to a bunch of stuff. Let me see. I will tell you right off the bat. Shigeru Umebayashi, Ennio Morricone, Hans Zimmer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Hans Zimmer.
When it comes to just like, bands and stuff like that, I love Massive Attack.
Hmm. I have a friend who will be proud of that.
Yeah. So Massive Attack is one of my favorite bands. I listen to that. I listen to soundtrack music, like a lot of times, and then some hip hop or lo-fi, depending on the
I
mood.
use lo-fi a lot when I'm doing my podcast, doing my creative stuff too. Sometimes I just put on a lo-fi, and then I have a gentleman who makes the music for this podcast. He actually is a shoe. He works for a shoe company. He's now based in Portland for one of the big shoe companies. I don't have his permission to say the company he works for now, but on the side, he makes music, does some designing, and puts it online. And yeah, infrared crypto. And his music is it's very mesmerizing, and it's kind of like the lo-fi thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he has his albums on all platforms, and sometimes I just put on his albums, and I'm
Yeah.
walking, doing my thing there too. So
Oh, also one of the other most listened to artists is he's European. I hope I'm not saying his name wrong. Olafur Arnolds.
mm,
He's another one that I listen to on a heavy rotation next to the other stuff that I listen to.
okay, I'll definitely be checking them out. I always ask everybody for music. That's how I build my ever-growing playlist, and
Yeah.
I love collecting music from all over the world
Me
too.
too.
So yeah, that's yeah. I just love that. I love that.
Oh, in addition, in terms of the martial arts movements, I forgot to mention this too, because of the whole musicality of the movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
In martial arts and choreography. I also had a friend, a very good friend of mine who I worked on a music video with. His name is Cricket. And I remember running into him after not seeing him for a few years, and he was working at the Forbidden Planet at a comic store. And I was like, oh, I was like, reconnected with him. And at some point, when I thought about the musicality, I knew he was a house dancer. And I asked him, I was like, hey, you do house music. Do you teach dancing? He's like, yeah, I teach dancing, right on 14th Street at this dance studio. And I'm like, I want to take dancing classes. So I took dancing classes and I do house music.
Oh,
And I learned, I'm not great or anything, mind you, but I took it for a few years to teach myself to get rhythm in my body
okay.
to help me with the martial arts movements.
So how did that? How? Because I always felt like people who knew martial arts or danced, eh, like, if you could dance, like learning martial arts could be easy because like was it
Cap-
capoeira?
capoeira.
Capoeira.
Yeah.
It's a form of, it's like the blend of both.
Yeah.
And I'm always envious when I see that. Like, man, I wish I had an opportunity to go into that. Like, that's so beautiful when you see the
Yeah.
movement, and So I'm like, yeah, but that should be an easy flow. That's in my mind. That's how I feel. Like that should be an easy flow. Well, depending on the dance, and I know my namesake in Florida. He's from Venezuela. You'll be like, no, 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 no. You got to do bachata and all that. I'm like, okay, here we go now.
Yeah. They
Let's
share
go.
very close similarities. It's
Mhm.
like some of the movements when you watch people move, like either a martial artist or a dancer. It's like you see the cadence, you see the rhythm, you see them like flowing. It's all about flow. And then when you learn about all this stuff, then all of a sudden you open up so many doors and you start saying, "Oh, he's too stiff." There's no rhythm to it, and it's too tense. And then you can see who's the really good one that relaxes, that flows, that knows how to bring the energy when it's needed, and then relax a little. It's
Mm.
like same thing with dance. When I was learning dance from my friend, like look at him. He's like, you see how he's not hard. He's feeling the music, and he's going with it. And you see he's taking his time, and he's got like he's just enjoying himself. And then when you see the same thing with martial arts, it's like you see these guys who are just doing repetitive, stiff movements as opposed to other martial artists where they're like flowing. They're like, you know.
Because I always think about that Bruce Lee's famous saying, "Be like water."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Bruce Lee was a champion cha cha dancer too.
Hmm.
So it made sense. And that's why I was like, oh, I better learn to dance.
Yeah, that I learned to dance. That's I think you may have just given me inspiration to get back in the game.
Well, I would never dance in public though. I
Hey,
go to clubs with them and I still cannot shake the feeling of like, no, I don't want to dance in front of everybody.
hey, everybody who's on this podcast is considered a dancer. If you say you don't dance, we'll stop recording and kick you out of the studio right now. So
Might as well
it's
kick me out now.
it's too late. We already got you on tape. We already know you dance. It's too late. You
Sorry,
can't deny
Cricket.
it.
I didn't mean to disappoint you.
So as I begin to prepare to wrap up, um, you are in comic books also.
Hmm.
You stick into the black and white with comic books, right?
Hmm.
Were you tempted to go the colored route, like change to what's like, well, for lack of a better phrase, what's more common, and change away from what you has been working for you or what you've always stuck to?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to color actually. The black and white that I've been doing, especially when I started doing ink wash, was just my way of making myself feel comfortable with a brush. Because when I do ink wash,
Hmm.
you're basically diluting the ink into different values, so dark, medium, light. And I wanted to do watercolor because I saw some artists that were doing incredible watercolor work, that inspired me. Like I was telling you earlier, there's John J. Muth, there's this animator character designer named Manu Arenas, Olivia Coipel. They did these incredible watercolor pieces, but I was never comfortable because I feel like I never got into it. So for me to build my confidence up, I started doing the ink wash to get the idea of it to make my hand comfortable with it because there are stuff out there that make me feel like sometimes I should use some color. And I have been. I mean, you see on the
Yep.
sketchbook, I started adding color,
Hmm.
but predominantly, yeah, I work with black and white. But I don't know if you saw my Instagram post, but I've started doing watercolors. I started
Oh, I must have missed that.
Well, yeah, I started doing watercolors recently because I thought, okay, I have no more excuses. It's been how many years since I've said this? I got to start doing this. And so I'm transitioning to doing watercolors. And I'm not just going to keep myself doing black and white because I know it's very limiting. There's only so much I can do with it. But that's the good thing about art, right?
Mhm.
Art is always, if you master one thing, there's always something else new to learn to add to your tool set as an artist. So with art, it's great because I'm just learning one thing at a time. And when I feel like I'm comfortable and I'm good enough, it's time to move on to the next thing. What else can I do? I don't want to be stagnant. I don't want to just draw one way. I'm always constantly evolving. And I look at all of my influences, and the ones that influence me the most are the ones that I always see get better and different, and they grow. And so it makes me influenced to never stop, to always be better, not just to not like in a competitive way, but just as
Yeah.
myself, you can always do better.
Yeah.
It's also like martial arts philosophy, just because you could do this, it doesn't mean you're the greatest fighter. You can
Mhm.
always learn more
Mhm.
as a person, even if you're not talking about martial arts or art, just the idea, the concept of growing, as a person, from the moment you're a child to the moment you turn elderly. Think about that span of time in between, what you've accumulated in experience, what you've succeeded in, what you failed in, but all of that comes from trial and error. Like, you make mistakes,
Yeah.
but you learn from it and you get better. You become a better person. You handle life better.
So, are you right? Are you writing the story in your comic book, or are you just doing the drawings only?
For my personal comic, I
Yeah.
wrote the script. I
Okay.
spent a couple of years writing that and developing it. And then again, like after I edit my own stuff, then I would go in and start drawing it out. And the whole process of seeing that, when you draw it out based on what you read in the script, sometimes the visuals kind of come differently from the words.
Mm.
So then I'll go back to the script and kind of redo it a little bit because some things doesn't work visually for me. But that was just my process. I wouldn't call myself like a professional writer by any means, but I'm just trying it because it's a book that I created and I had an idea of it. So why not? It's like I'm gonna do it. No one else knows it better than I do, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. And I have friends that are writers that would give me input. They're like, "Oh yeah, you need to fix this. This doesn't make sense or whatever." So I get that input to help me improve as I go along.
So, what advice will you give to a procrastinator like myself to get to start his comic book? Yeah, like
To
to
just
to get his comic book started.
You just gotta do it.
I know. I knew that was
There's
coming.
nothing. There's no secret. You know.
I knew that was coming. Yeah,
There's no secret to it because now that I am really doing it. In the beginning, it was hard. I was progressing into it, but the moment I finally understood it, and it is what it is. It's you have to just sit down and you gotta force yourself to do it. It has to be thousands and thousands of hours of muscle memory
hmm
and discipline and focus that you put into yourself. I think it started with me when I had knee surgery and I couldn't go anywhere. So I would wake up in the morning and on my crutches, I would kind of like hobble my way into the coffee shop. And it started with me just bringing a sketchbook, sitting at the coffee shop, order my tea, and I'll just draw in my sketchbook for what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I did that every day for a whole month before it turned out to be second month. I drew for 40 minutes. Fourth month, an hour. And then all of a sudden, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, a whole day. It became ingrained in me and I learned to discipline myself to like sit down, do it. And at the end of the day, now it's just so uh uh
Second nature.
yeah, second nature.
Yeah.
to just draw for me because I trained myself to do that. So I don't have any excuses. And if I don't draw, I feel like, oh, I'm unproductive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the discipline I need. I need to discipline myself to get there.
And also the other thing that helps me, then this is my personal thing, when you have friends that are professional artists that you've shown your work to and then they give you advice on how to do better, I walk away from it and I keep working on my sketchbook. And I if I don't see, say, one of them for a whole year and he's like, "Oh, when I see you, I better look at your sketchbook and see some improvement," I put in my head, don't disappoint them. I'm
Mm,
gonna work hard.
okay. That's good friends. They hold you accountable. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's important. Yeah. So um oh, how did that question disappeared? I had a question I thought I'd lined up smoothly, but I can catch it back. So I'll move on to the the other good stuff that I had in mind. So you're born in Brooklyn, you know, you're in the creative spaces, and it's all good. We've talked about we've had some great stories. We've gone all the way to we've touched the Taiwanese, Hong Kong, Japan. We've gone quite far. We've gone far places. But there's one thing we haven't touched on. One very important part of being a Brooklynite that we haven't touched on, and it's about cuisine. So, what's your favorite go-to cuisine? Yeah, you got to betray somebody, obviously. So, yeah. So, what was that number one right now? Who's your favorite number one go to cuisine?
I can tell you what's not my favorite cuisine.
Oh, what's not? Is that a betrayal? Somebody gonna start writing and say he's not one of us?
Oh, they probably already my friends already joke, "You're not Chinese because you don't like Chinese food that much."
Oh, someone's gonna start writing. Are you sure? You sure that's his name?
I mean, I eat Chinese food
Of
from
course.
time to time, but I don't because you grew up with it all your life and that's all you eat, and then you're
That's like
kind of
me
like
with
used to it. And
Nigerian food. I've had a lot. That's why I love New York. I get food from everywhere. So I gotta Nigerian can't be my favorite. It's I mean I still love Nigerian food, but I'm like I gotta go eat some other foods.
I love Japanese food.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, yeah. I'll give you all his email so you can send your angry letters just in case.
I still have to go to Japan. I really want to go to Japan so bad.
You haven't been there?
No.
Oh, okay. That's a surprise.
So Japan and France are my two go-to places right now because right now, in terms of like the artistic creative influences,
Hmm.
Japan is there and now France.
Those are
Bec-
two big cinema spots too. Yeah, when
yeah.
it comes to film, they're big
Film,
influences.
photography,
Photography, yes.
art,
Yeah, man.
and there's a certain level of art standard for me when I look at the people who make this stuff where I was like,
Mhm.
it makes you feel like, okay, you cannot you cannot be lazy.
Yeah, you got to. You got to. Now it's my turn to say, just do it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Yeah, I believe in you. You do it. So, do you have any future or upcoming projects aside from your comic book? Are you allowed to say your comic book
Yeah,
title?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I can say, it's like, so I'm working on People Die with Dan Pinoza and Joe
okay. Actually, I said
Ross.
it at the beginning.
I
Yeah.
can't really talk too much about that, but
Okay.
it's at the close to the end of the stage of being finished. I know
Hmm.
I've said it a few times, but it's taking a little while longer. My book is also being worked on, but slowly because it's been on hiatus since I've been working on this book, and I'm developing another book with another writer, which I can't talk too much about either because it's still in development.
All right.
Because I'm just juggling back and forth between these books.
Are you self-publishing?
I don't know yet. I want to. I thought about it. I thought about like I wouldn't mind putting it out myself. I know it'd be a lot of work, a lot of money, but what is the end goal for me in self publishing? But It'd be more like, yeah, I just want to say I did it. Whether it fails or not, at least I made the effort to do it.
Mm.
Uh, I don't know. I really can't say. It's too early right now
All right.
because I'm still trying to just finish it.
Hey, that's the one thing at a time.
Yeah.
All right. So, any other upcoming projects aside from the books that you
No,
can share right now?
nothing.
All right. So, final question: what would you like to leave the audience with? It's your freestyle moment.
Oh, the audience, I hope that they like my work, and for the people that have followed my work and are listening, I'm really appreciative and thankful of the support that I've been getting because I never thought that I would get the type of reception that I did. It's a bit uh nerve wracking because I'm not used to it. I'm the type of person that doesn't like to have any attention or focus, which is weird, but uh but it comes with the territory too. I work
Mhm.
in film and I work in art, but it's just nice to see that people look at it and like, oh, this is good stuff. So
It is great stuff. Like I said, my kid looks at your if she could watch a whole video of you sketching without being like, I'm not interested. She was like, wow, that's good. That's good. And I'm like waiting for her to like, okay, lose interest and bounce. Let me keep watching. And she was still there like, that's really good. I'm like, you're a 4 year old. You gonna keep watching this with me? You're not gonna run away? And she's still staring. I'm like, okay, she can recognize greatness. And that's you got a 4 year old Brooklyn Knight attention, then yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess those are the things that make it worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's better than the big recognition or any kind of success. It's more about the fact that, like you said, a child can look at him like, oh wow, it's like I want to just keep staring at this, and then it's how I felt when I first got influenced by looking at art. I couldn't stop looking, and I was obsessed. And to see someone else feel that way about my work, it's kind of comes full circle and makes me feel. I can't describe the feeling, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's a beautiful feeling.
And it's very communal, I guess you could say,
Yes.
you know?
Communal.
And the art community to me of the people that I've met and become friends with and have lent me guidance and also some sort of support. It's it's I'd hate to use that word. Do I want to use that word? I don't want to use that word because everyone says it. It's like, oh, I'm so humbled. But I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah. And well, as someone who's seen your work up close, and it's one of my cherished possessions at home, I love it, and
Thank
you
you.
deserve all the praise. So
Thank you. Thank you.
yes, and if you don't want to be you if you want to scream and yeah, if you want to be egoistic, I don't care, but you deserve the flowers.
No,
That's how they say.
I don't want
Uh,
an ego.
I know. I'm that's my. I'm the guy who gets to. I get to be the Jet Li in the Little Weapon 4 right now. Even though I can't fight for anything, but it's okay. Please let the audience know where they can find you and your work.
They can find me on my Instagram because I'm most active there posting stuff. Genga Draws at Instagram, GengaDraws. And I'm pretty consistent in what I share with my work there.
And I'll have that in show notes. And yeah, I'll post. I'll post that on the show notes. And yeah, go out there, check his work out, and yeah, support. You love it. It's one of the best Instagram accounts you can follow. It's just yeah, sometimes you just watch the sketch happening live, and it's peaceful. It's therapeutic. It's therapeutic. So yeah, it's a great time. So once again, thank you for coming on the show. I forgot how to say thank you in mine. I used to know how to say thank you in Mandarin and Cantonese. My
You're talking to the worst Chinese person, don't
yeah,
forget.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay. My my in laws is Cantonese, so Yeah, but on my
Gorgeous.
side, it's Mbana. That's how we say thank you. And my wife is Dankeschön. Dankeschön.
Yes.
So that works.
Vielen Dank.
Yeah, vielen Dank. See, you're good. You're good. You're good. You
My
at my
time in
level.
Germany.
Yeah, you're at my level. It's all right.
Vielen Dank. Merci. Arigato gozaimasu.
Ah,
谢谢.
yes. See, that's all good. It's a world podcast. So thank you all for listening. Keep the love coming in. See you all at next episode next week probably. And yeah, don't forget to like, share, keep the support. 5-star reviews. What else? Buy merch. You know all the good stuff to do. Join Patreon if you can. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, please give a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. You can follow the show on all social media platforms. Visit the White Label American website for links for donations, episodes, feedback, guests, merch, and newsletter. Don't forget to download the free White Label American app on the Google Play Store and Apple coming soon. Thank you for the privilege of your company.